Hello, hello. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the object selection tool, which can be pretty magical if you have just the right photo. And sometimes it doesn't quite do the job. But it's a great thing to try if you have a photograph like this one that has a very distinct foreground object and background. So the object selection tool is located here. It's one of the selection tools. It lives with the quick selection tool and the magic wand, but make sure you're on the object selection tool. And I'm actually going to hover and let this show us. It says finds and automatically selects an object inside a defined region. And that defined region is key. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag and draw sort of this box around the object that I want selected. And then let go. You have to make sure that it's not cutting off any bits of that flower, your subject, and not too far outside. But if you get it just right and it's the right photo, you can see here it did a really good job of selecting that object. So it can be really useful. But I want to show you some other cases though. So here's one where you think it might work pretty well. I'm going to try this again, click and drag, kind of keep it just outside the edge. It's okay, but do you see how it does sort of cut off some of the tips and leave some of that outside edge, that background still selected? So, it doesn't always do a great job. And then if you have a photograph that's pretty complicated like this one, where it has some shadows, and you have some areas of, buildings and things, does it really know what you want selected? Let's see, try. I mean, it's pretty good in some of those areas where it's very clear, but notice how it kind of gets confused where there's some trees and some background. So it can get you started and then you might be able to do some cleanup, but it's a really good, useful tool to know when you're using the right thing. So what I want to do today though, is for you to add a cartoon into a photograph. This one's kind of fun, where the end result can be, kind of an image that you might want to keep and feel good about making, not just process, but product too. So I'm going to start here with this photograph of a tree, and I want you to think about a cartoon character, one of your favorite cartoon characters that you would like to copy and paste into a photograph that you have taken, okay? We're going to get the cartoon off the internet, obviously, but the photograph that you put the cartoon into should be a photo that you have taken. So I am going to try placing Totoro in this tree because I love Totoro. So I'm going to go over to Chrome and I'm going to do a search for Totoro. And I misspelled it. Whoops. But let's try that again. Only one T. Images. Okay, now I want a complete Totoro, not just a cut off part, because I want him sitting on that tree. So let's see if I can find an image, maybe this one. So you want to find an image that has a white background or a transparent background so that I can easily get rid of that white. And I'm going to use the object selection tool for that. Okay, so if you're on a PC, you can do a right click or you hold down the control key and click on a Mac and say copy image. Now I'll go back to Photoshop and edit, paste. And now I have Totoro. Now I am going to use the object selection tool. I'm going to make sure I'm on the Totoro layer there and select around him. And we magically get him because he has a nice white background. Okay, so now I actually want to get rid of the white and keep the Totoro. So I'm going to do something very useful here that you might use a lot. Go to select inverse. That makes the selection the opposite of what I had before. Again, make sure you're on the right layer there. And then I'm just going to hit the delete key, and that deletes all the white because I had all the white selected, leaving Totoro behind. Now I'll go to select, deselect, so I just have him, and I can use my move tool to sort of float him around. And now I want to scale him. I'm just going to show transform controls so I can scale him and decide how big I want him. I want him sitting comfortably on the tree. There, so I wouldn't want him hanging off, right? I want this to look as realistic as can be. So that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to add a shadow right underneath where he's sitting. So it sort of places him in the photo. I'm going to turn off show transform control so I can see without that bounding box. And so I'm going to need a new layer. I'm going to click on the new layer icon, and I want that shadow to be underneath Totoro, but on top of the tree. So I'm going to make sure that layer is in the correct location. Then I'm going to use my, just the paintbrush tool. I want it to be fairly soft, okay? Because shadows don't usually have hard edges, not too hard anyway. And I also want to make sure that I'm going to make this black or dark gray, because shadows are dark gray or black for the most part. Okay, making sure I'm on the shadow layer. I could even, if I click on layer 2, double click on layer 2, I can type shadow so I can see what layer I'm on. And now I'm just going to use that edge, that sort of soft edge of that brush. And remember, you can use the bracket keys to go smaller and larger. Might make it a little smaller. And I'm just putting in a little shadow so that he's sort of sitting, it places him more firmly on the tree. And that looks pretty good. One of the reasons why I put this on its own layer, well, first of all, so that we can have it in the right location, but also I can control, see how the shadow looks kind of dark? I can go to the opacity and just control that one layer and bring the opacity and get it just so I like the darkness of the shadow. All right, and I think that looks pretty good. So go ahead and save this and turn it in. Have fun.